Well, hello. I want to introduce Miss Malia Lewis. She's a board member at Cleveland Heights and University Heights School District in Ohio. And thank you for coming with us and
You're welcome.
Chatting a little bit about some of the issues that you feel strongly about.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Yeah.
It's nice to also be in person at a conference.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's been a while. It's been probably about 18 months for us. So, how long have you been a school board member?
I am finishing up my first term, so
Okay.
3.5 years or so.
Okay, all right. So you got your feet wet.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's a very steep learning curve.
Yes, it is.
And then we had a pandemic.
Absolutely. So, well, thank you for throwing your head in the ring here and helping the community.
Thank you.
So one of the things that most people feel pretty strongly about right now, especially at Cube where we're at, is equity and what the current policies are at, just kind of all over the nation. So can you speak a little bit about how you feel and what you guys are doing in Ohio with regards to that?
I can tell you a little bit about what we have done in Cleveland Heights, University Heights City Schools. We were the first school district in Northeast Ohio to pass an equity policy probably 6 or 8 years ago now. I forget the exact year. I'm supposed to know these things. And that was a board policy which set the tone for all future work. And so we now look at every decision through an equity lens, which was just referred to in the keynote address earlier here, that doing our work through an equity lens, and that has been a district focus since then, since that policy was passed. And it covers all sorts of things. And the most important thing to remember is that it's a continual process. The job's never done. So we are always looking at how we do things and figuring out how to do them better, and looking at equity as a way to improve what we do in the district. Now, our district is about 5,000 students large, which is not an urban district per se, but we're in a ring suburb right outside the city of Cleveland. We've had a task force of employees, parents, community members who have been working since that policy was passed on how do we implement this policy.
Interesting.
And the most important thing to start with is training everybody who comes in contact with the students in I'm going to get the term wrong, sort of self-identity.
Got it.
And then we work through a bunch of different modules from the Kirwan Institute on identity and implicit bias and how these things affect the work that we do, even though we may not be aware of it. So the last year, despite the pandemic, the school district was able to implement training for every single employee in identity and implicit bias. And all new hires are also trained as they come into the district, no matter what their job is, no matter what their position is.
Everybody's on the same page.
Right, so that we all start with the same operating assumptions, that each person has inherent qualities and identities that are different, that are not necessarily obvious from the outside. We talk about race a lot in this country, obviously, because it's visible from the outside.
It's a part of our lives.
But the idea is that everybody should become self-aware, and that allows them to then look on their students with empathy. Empathy is a very important component of all of this. There's often a misconception that equity means equality and that everybody gets the same thing, and people in the education world, have seen the picture of 3 children of different heights all standing on the same size box, or each one getting a slightly taller box depending on how short the child is, so that everybody can see over the fence, right? We've seen that meme, and that is really what we're trying to do in our district, is to provide each student what that student needs to be successful. And it's not the same between students, it's not the same between buildings in our district. And so we always have to keep that in mind when we have people clamoring on the outside saying, well, it's not fair, right? And anybody who's a parent knows that it's not fair.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that fair is not the same as equal. Equitable is not the same as equal.
Yeah.
So,
I think about equality as, bricks and mortar, and equity is a little bit different. It's about what's good for that specific child.
Right.
In that specific setting.
Exactly. I'm very proud of the work that the district did during the shutdown. The governor of Ohio shut us all down very hard in mid-March of 2020, and everybody got sent home. And what was going to be a 3-week spring break turned into the rest of the school year.
For everybody, right?
Right.
As we're, some of us are still wearing masks, and we're still in that
everybody
limbo.
punted. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody punted because we had to figure out what to do, and there's no playbook for this one.
So absolutely no playbook. So that's a great segue. What was your specific response to the pandemic at Cleveland Heights, at University Heights?
Well, it sounds not educational, but our first priority was getting food to the kids. And so everybody who worked for the district in whatever capacity, the teachers, started trying to figure out how to teach from home. And that was all about technology, it was all about interfaces and how do we make that work. But everybody else who was not a teacher got redeployed to making and distributing food. We were quick to figure out a method to create grab-and-go bags and get breakfast and lunch into each bag, and develop systems in different buildings so that any child, whether they were a public school student or a private school student, could come and pick up meals, and they could pick up meals for siblings, they could pick up meals for anybody who needed them. Our bus drivers were delivering meals to drop-off points that used to be their routes to pick up kids. And we delivered well over 1 million meals.
Wow, that's amazing. Absolutely.
And this current school year, we're back in person 5 days a week, but we have kept a remote option for students whose families don't think that it's appropriate for them to be in the building, whatever the reason is. So we've got about 180 students or so who are part of Tiger Virtual Academy. So they are not in the buildings. So we are maintaining food availability. You can come and pick up food at 3 sites throughout the district. And that happens twice a week or 3 times a week. So you get, on Friday you pick up breakfast and lunch for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and breakfast for Monday. And then on Monday you can come and get 3 days worth of meals, etc. So there's this rotation.
So it's not every day.
No, it's not every day, but you get
have a meal for every day of the week. You don't pick up every day.
Right, because we know that public school is the primary source of food and nutrition for a vast number of children in our district. And if they're not getting breakfast and lunch in the schools, then we need to make sure they get it.
You need full bellies to learn, for sure.
Right.
You need that fuel.
And that was a reflection of our commitment to equity. Because we have plenty of kids who were fine at home and who, a parent or a family member was able to stay home and help them deal with remote learning, which is a whole headache of its own.
Right.
But we had a large number of families for whom that was not an option, and they needed food.
There are some kids that are blessed, and some kids that are not as blessed, and I'm glad the school district was there for them. So let's talk a little bit about did the pandemic, maybe even before, did you have any achievement gaps or issues of that regard that were, I'm sure, exasperated by?
We're a community that is majority white, approximately 50 to 60% white and 40 to 50% African American. But we are a school district that skews 70% African American. We are in a region of Northeast Ohio with a large number of private and parochial schools nearby, and so the public school ends up skewing more African American than the community at large. And we see the same achievement gaps that are seen all over the country between black and white students, between English language learners and native English speakers. And it used to be, between children on free and reduced lunch and children who were not on free and reduced lunch. But a number of years ago, again, part of this equity thinking and mindset, our district applied for a federal grant that provides universal breakfast and lunch for everybody in the district, so that we could remove some of those barriers and paperwork nonsense around qualifying for a free and reduced lunch. So everybody has access to those meals. But the achievement gaps persist. And so what we as a district need to do is look at those head on and address them, rather than looking at averages, and disaggregate the data in order to work on improving achievement of the subgroups.
For sure, you have to recognize where the issues are at before you start targeting them.
Right. And so that's something which our current superintendent is very keenly focused on, and she is data queen, absolutely all about the data. And, she and the principals meet monthly and disaggregate that data in order to figure out
that's a very
who needs the extra help. Yeah. And how do we provide that, whatever those supports are for the specific students, specific subgroups.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, again, I thank you for joining the conversation and willing to share your information with your peers.
Thank you.
This is going to be very helpful. My name is Alex Lopez with Issues in Education, and this is Ms. Malia Lewis, a board member from Cleveland Heights and University Heights in Ohio. And thank you so much.
Thank you.